Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on our August monthly data reporting call. We do realize that this is out of the norm because normally we would have had this meeting 2 weeks ago. But thank you, thank you, thank you. And yes, this meeting will be recorded and shared with everyone once it is transcribed for YouTube and posting to the website. We should have Nikita Leftwich and Sophia Mosley joining us from Frontline Central today to talk about some things on the Enrich side that will be beneficial to you guys. I am Carolyn Bostic, the team lead for data collection and reporting. Joined with me this morning, we do have Andrea Cannon, Yolanda Singletary, and Albert Roman. Assisting with the presentation today. We're going to cover out once again just the final closeout procedures for the 22-23, just things that are coming down the pikes, as well as some updates and reminders, talk about the MOE CEIS report that's due the second Friday in October, as well as the child count requirements for the 23-24 reporting year. And then we'll have Nikita and Sophia to join us for the Enrich updates. And then we'll conclude with announcements and contacts and questions should there be any. Okay.
Carolyn, I still don't see where you're recording at all.
It's not. Oh.
Okay, wait, I just got the message for it. Never mind.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you. So for our clarification period for tables 4 and 5 and indicators 11 and 12, for indicators 11 and 12, we did want to let you know that any outcomes on indicators 11 and 12 with an outcome reason of in process will be removed from your report. So if you have some in there that were not completed prior to June 30th, those will be removed. So when we have our clarification period, if you have any of those in-process students whose evaluations or transition for BabyNet were completed, you can include them in on the clarification period, but otherwise they will be removed from the report. There are some comments that are some evaluation or timelines that are overdue, that are missing explanations or need additional explanation in order for us to reverse the penalty. So therefore, in our clarifications, we are seeking additional clarification. So if you see those things, and we'll get into the specifics of what those things are that we're looking for in some of the upcoming slides, but we did want to notate those things. For indicator 7, the last thing that we will do or we will need for indicator 7 is our year-to-year change explanations. And as we transition through this process, we'll try to get this all into you more succinctly so that there's not a whole lot of stopping back and forth, but your indicator 7 year-to-year change explanation is basically just a notation. There is no right or wrong answer, but just to kind of help us engage to what's going on in your district that's causing your data to change, okay? So that's what that is. So there's no right or wrong answer, but it's just a way that OSEP has tasked the states to check in with the districts. They give us a specific criteria that we must use to engage on those year-to-year change explanations. And just a reminder that the determinations will be posted to our website today, as well as we did want to remind you that we're only using the meets requirements and needs assistance for the FY 2021 determinations that you received a couple of weeks ago, the corrections. And then on the September 5th director's call, Elizabeth Moore will be talking more about the next steps and what that plan will look like for those districts. Just a reminder that no district should receive a final determination for needs intervention or needs substantial intervention. For the indicator 11 clarifications, Yolanda, did you want to speak or do you want me to carry on?
I can go ahead and discuss it. Good morning.
Sure.
This is Yolanda Singletary, and I am in the process of cleansing the data, and you will be receiving your Excel sheets with a request for clarification. We have some that you will need to update the outcome reason and outcome reason code. It shows as a district error or some type of error. It's highlighted in yellow. So if you would please give me the correct outcome reason and outcome reason code, that'd be great. Some um, evaluations are missing the evaluation complete date and outcome reason and a code. So if you have any that are missing dates, please populate the date. And once you populate the date, give me the outcome reason and outcome reason code for that evaluation. We also have lots of duplicates of students within the districts, and I have a comment of should both remain. I noticed that some have a complete and met the timeline, and then some are not complete at all, or there is another outcome reason other than the completed on time. So if you could tell me whether or not both should remain or if one should be removed, and let me know and I can take that out. Also, with the transfers of students that are within the districts, if you could let me know which district should be responsible for the completed evaluation. Some have dates in it, some don't. I am not sure which district is responsible for completing the evaluation, so that'll help clear that up. And as Carolyn stated earlier, for evaluations that are overdue, some may need additional explanations as to why they're late. Like I have some where there is only a period in the comment box, and that does not give me the reason why the evaluation is overdue. So if you could refrain from using things such as a period or NA and state exactly why the evaluation is overdue, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Andrea?
Good morning. This is Andrea Cannon, and this year I will be actually handling indicator 12. So, again, as Yolanda and Carolyn stated, we're in the clarification period for 11 and 12. So, while evaluating or going through indicator 12, just some of the trending issues that I'm finding or missing information. So, during the clarification, you'll receive we'll need you to correct outcome reason and outcome reason codes. You're missing, some districts are missing outcome reason and outcome reason codes. Um, Missing IEP start date or the SPED exit date. Without those pieces of information, I can't move forward. Overdue, still may need some additional explanations to determine if the penalty will remain. Some of those comments are very vague and I can't make a determination. So you may see a comment stating, please provide a more detailed explanation in your comment section. There will be no penalty for overdue events. If the meeting was held prior to the third birthday and the implementation was delayed prior to the start of the school year, for example, let's just say that you had a meeting July 1st and the student is not in school at that point, so the child is set to um, begin and it's implemented in August, then there will be no penalty there. And that's all I have for indicator 12.
And this is Yolanda again for table 4. You will also be getting your clarification. I will say that the report this year was a lot cleaner, and I do have some districts that are missing the gender or race ethnicity for their students, and you will receive a clarification worksheet for that.
Albert, did you want to speak about indicator 8, or did you want me to take that?
No, you can take that, please. Thank you.
Okay. So because we are re-implementing the survey sampling plan, I did want to continuously remind those districts that are submitting in February, I think it's February, the first submission for the indicator 8. I did want to keep this information included into the PowerPoint. Also, just to remind districts that all districts will receive the surveys at the conclusion of an initial or annual review. That will not change, but the focus districts will be these districts that will be required to submit their information. I believe it's in February for the first go round. And when you submit during that time frame, basically we're just going through looking at your demographics information. So prior to submitting to the state, you want to make sure that all students have their parents' names in there, a complete clean mailing address. If they have an email address where we could send the information to, that is perfectly fine. Race, ethnicity, as well as the gender. So those things are required. That's what you're double checking before you submit the report. It is just a demographics report that is submitted to us so that we could create the postcards to as a last opportunity to get the parents to complete the survey. We have modified the survey because one of OSEP's reporting requirements is that one of the questions, or when we're talking about representativeness, is the demographics of the parents. Is it representative of the students? So we did have to include into our survey links for the demographic of the parents. So if you get any questions about that, that is actually legit, because OSEP is trying to engage as to whether or not the parents of the students that are being served as representatives. So that's where that's coming from. Again, the survey window for indicator 8 closes June 30th. So it is only a year-to-year survey. Okay. For indicator 14, I did want to talk a little bit about sending the list to the vendor of those students that have not been contacted, just as a means of helping to increase the response rate, because September 30th, the window for you guys will close September 30th, but the vendor will still have the option to contact those students. So that's kind of like our last go round once you're done contacting on September 30th. I will still send that update to the districts. That will be a full list once after September 30th, the first week of October, when I start sending out those survey results. That will be an all district, everybody response rate, just to let you know how things are progressing for your students. Whether it be indicator 8 or indicator 14 as a district, you may want to send something out or some sort of social media blast to say, hey, there are surveys coming out. So it's not a scam, you know what I mean? Because it is the vendor that will be contacting them for indicator 14. So, and for indicator 8 as a district, you just want to remind the parents to complete the surveys at the conclusion of the annuals and the initials. Did want to reiterate the formula for the response rate. It is not an all contact. If you're unable, or if you're clearing or removing those students from your list under the option of 3 attempts, no contact, that is not included into your response rate. It is only the ones that are that falls in the not applicable, because that takes you through the survey. So it is the not applicable total, which is the total surveyed. Those are the ones that you've actually contacted to complete the survey by the total number of students in your source file, okay? I try to highlight the discrepancies on the survey response, whether they've been entered twice. I highlight those in your ADT spreadsheet attachment. So if you do have discrepancies, please, those can only be removed by you contacting me and giving me an update on those survey codes so that I can correct it at the source level. Unresolved duplicates and discrepancies will be removed from your final report, and that could very well lower your response rate. So I did want you guys to know that about the indicator 14. As always, we do provide the links on a weekly basis in English and Spanish. Just remember that your list with your survey codes, that was placed in ADT back in June. So if you're looking for that information, you should be able to find it in your ADT file. And if for some unforeseen reason it is no longer there or it's been removed for whatever the reason is, just contact me and I can provide you with an updated list. I just need to know that. If you're still looking for the instructions on how to complete the survey, that link is embedded into your weekly updates as well. So it is the instructions. It is the instructions recording, and this is the link that you could go to if you want information about completing the survey. Once again, Singo is, I see a typo in there. Singo is assisting us with the completion of those surveys. If they are able to contact any students from your list, that will be included in your weekly update, and I will have a notation in there that the survey was completed by the vendor. So just wanted to give you some information about that. And I think there was a question in the chat about the determinations and why are we posting today? The deadline for posting determinations, we notated that a while ago, but once again, if you find any issues or discrepancies with your determinations, just let us know. I think the second time around we did due diligence and we had multiple eyes on the surveys and the outcomes. I think the biggest question to date has been where the source of the data and how the methodology. So if you have any questions about your data or the methodology used, please contact me. I believe to date, I've only had maybe about 5 districts to contact inquiring about their determinations. Outside of that, I haven't heard anything from anyone. But if you do have questions, please get that to me as soon as possible so that we can review it. Just kind of going through the chats here. There's a question that says, should we still be giving the parents the survey QR code that is generated in Rich? Yes, please provide that information to them. Just because you're not on the focus district list doesn't mean that there won't be good information out there for you. So still give it to them. We will still provide you with the information. It's just that those focus districts will be the focus point of submitting or completing the SPP APR, but we will still provide you with that information. How will Singo be contacting the parents? If we can get an email address, that will be contacting the parents. If there is an email address in your source file, you could use that to contact the parents. Singo has, because they're a vendor, they do use some additional methods. They do mail as well. They make phone calls, they use social media. So they have a variety of ways that they use to contact or attempt to contact the students to complete the surveys. So there's a question in the chat as to whether or not I'll be turning all students without results into the vendor and as of what date. So I provided the vendor with a list as of August 21st. they will, any surveys that they complete, they will have that information to me by close of business on Thursday, so that when I send the updates out on Monday, it will be included on that. And they've been instructed that if they should make contact with a parent that have already completed the survey, they're just going to notate that the survey was completed by the district, or someone from the district has contacted them already. Kathy, as far as the contact list, I am using what's in Deems to send out my information, and I update that list at the beginning of every month. So if your information is not in, or was not in Deems at the beginning of August, hopefully it will be in Deems by the time I do my updated list for September. Okay. Yes, the vendors, although the opt-in districts, they will end their contacting on September 30th, the vendor will still be trying to make contacts with those students. So anyone that has not completed the survey by September 30th, or I'm going to say by October 1st, the vendor will be reaching out or trying to make contacts with those students that have not been contacted as of October 1st. September 30th will end the opt-in district's responsibility or attempts to contact the students on their list. Okay. The Table 8 MOECEIS report that is actually due the second Friday in October. And so I did want to talk a little bit about this, because when it's time for us to submit the reports, there tends to be some discrepancy in what is entered into that Excel spreadsheet versus what the districts are actually doing. So you want to ask yourself, did you voluntarily set aside 15%? And if the answer to that is yes, then you should have a count of students that you are going to work with. And for this, it is only if IDEA funds are used, right? So if you said no, then your count should be 0. You should never have an instance where you have a count and you didn't set aside any funds. So it should work hand in hand. If you're voluntarily setting aside, then you should have a student count for which you're going to provide services for. Okay, and I want to be clear, this is only in instances where IDEA funds are used. I know for some of these intervention services, it is a gen ed function, but if you are using IDEA funds to set aside, I can't stress this enough, if you're using IDEA funds and you're voluntarily setting aside, you should have yes, otherwise it should be 0, no, you didn't set aside, and no, we don't have any students, okay? For the reporting, like I said earlier, it goes hand in hand. So if you must use IDEA funds to serve the students, as well as have a total count. So if the answer is yes, you want to have, for D2, if you're voluntarily setting aside, you should have an amount there, as well as a count for students served, okay? If you have any questions about this, please make sure that you contact us prior to submitting that Excel spreadsheet to us. We want to try to get this as accurate on the front side as possible. OSEP, Office of Special Education Programs, is changing some of the ways that we, the state, submit the information to them. And so in order for us to do that, we need a little wiggle room, if you will, to be able to meet those timelines. OSEP is no longer allowing states to resubmit their data. So all of the checks and balances has to happen on the front side. As a new requirement, we are now required to report CCEIS for those that are elements into this for the year in which you're required to set aside those funds. The count for this works similarly. So the year that you are required to set aside those funds, The tricky thing for this is when you are required, the students that you are serving could be gen ed as well as students with disabilities. So under CCEIS, where you're required to set aside your funds, we want to know the total number. Oh, did I do that? We want to know the total number of children with disabilities receiving CCEIS under IDEA in the LEA or during the 22-23 school year. And that's the other thing. This report is not for the current year. It is for those students that you provided services to during the 21-22 school year. Okay, I'm sorry, during the 22-23 school year. So I want to be clear about that. It is not those students that are in the 23-24 year, but this is for reflective as of last school year. And then we also need to know the total number of students without disabilities that you provided services to using CCEIS funds, okay? So that's a little different than when you're voluntarily setting aside funds, that those dollars can only be used for students with disabilities. But if you're providing services using CCEIS where you're required to set aside, those can, you can actually provide services to students with disabilities as well as students without disabilities. Okay. Okay. Now we want to get into our child count. And I did want to remind you that the data from your child count tables 1 and 3 is also the data that's used for the indicator 5 and 6, as well as I want to think it's performance factor 5. No, performance factor 6, the LRE data on your determination. So if those things are to the forefront as you're completing your reports, then we feel that it will be less likely, or the chances of submitting with errors or issues will be minimized. The child counts is all students. All students must be entered into Enrich in order to be counted on your report. So if you have students or issues in your districts where they may be using paper copies to complete the IEP and then enter it, that's a slippery slope, but I understand you must do what you have to do, but they must be entered into the system. We're not going to manually add students to the reports as we have done in the past. The child count date is the 4th Tuesday in October. That is not your submission date. That is your child count date. That means that all students on the report should be enrolled in receiving services as of the 4th Tuesday in October. And this report includes all students ages 3 through 21. The submission is actually due the first Friday in November, which is November 3rd. The final certification date is January 5th, but I'm hoping that we will have all certifications completed prior to you going out for the Christmas holidays. That is the goal. Okay. Once again, I just want to remind you that the data for this is used for indicators 5 and 6. So that's the alignment of your child count data to the actual SPP APR. Okay. Did want to talk about the LRE codes and making sure that you are using the correct LRE codes for your school age. And this slide is a repeat of last year's for both the school age and the early childhood LRE codes. So when you're reporting for those categories, these are the only applicable codes that may be used for those categories. Okay. One of the things that we did want to include into this this presentation is how to get started with those, so that with those IEPs, so that we can avoid the LRE grade level mismatch at the end for your child count report. So the question to ask is, what is the child's age? If the child is 3 years old, then you want to choose an early childhood IEP and enter one of the early childhood LRE placement codes. So that one is pretty easy, no issues there, right? When we get to the 4-year-olds, and so you want to ask yourself, will the child turn 5 years old and enroll in kindergarten during the life of this IEP? If the answer is no, then choose an early childhood IEP and enter one of the early childhood LRE placement codes. If the answer is yes, this is where it gets a little tricky. So if the child is turning 5, and enrolling into kindergarten during the life of this IEP, then you should choose, you want to start with a school age IEP, and you will enter two LRE placement codes. One, to complete the current year for the early childhood portion of the IEP. And then the second is for the school age or for the start of the next school year that's going to impact the kindergarten IEP. And remember that when you are writing the IEP for the student in kinder, remember to complete the exit codes prior to 3 weeks prior to the end of the school year. So we just want to make sure that those things aligns in your processes. If the child is turning 5 years old, so there's two questions. For the 5-year-olds, the end all be all, will the child turn 6 years old, turn 6 or enter kindergarten during this IEP? If the answer is no, then you're going to choose an early childhood IEP and enter one of the early childhood LRE placement codes. If the answer is yes, choose the school age LRE. Choose a school age IEP for the early childhood portion of the IEP. And the second part to this, and this is the most critical part, if the child would be kindergarten only, then enter only one school age LRE placement. But if the child will be pre-K and kindergarten during the span of the IEP, then you must choose two LRE codes. You need to choose one for the pre-K portion of the IEP, which is going to complete the current year. And then for that kindergarten portion, when the school year starts, you want to have that school age LRE that's going to impact your child count report for the next school year. So that's really how that component works. So we just wanted to include the verbiage into the presentation so that you are clear or have some guidance that you could reflect on to help guide you through this. And remember to complete the exit codes 3 weeks prior to the end of the school year when you're writing the kindergarten IEP. Okay. As you are completing your child count report, these are the required fields and they cannot be blank. So your grade level can't be blank, your race, ethnicity, gender, the multilingual learner, which is formerly your ESOL or ESL population, and primary disability. Those things absolutely cannot be blank on your child count report. And you also want to use the information provided on the earlier slides to double check to make sure that there is no mismatch between your LRE codes, age, and grade level. So those are the biggest challenges that we see when we're working on the child count report. Just as a reminder for the DD population, DD at the age of 10 or older is a federal era for South Carolina. So if you have students on your child count report that meets this criteria, you need to get those completed as soon as possible. Otherwise, they will be removed. That's my next statement. Unresolved DD will be removed from your child count report. There is a small window between your submission. You can submit with it. You can submit those kids on your child count report. However, your certification, you cannot certify until those reevaluations have been updated and there's a new disability for those students, okay? So there's a small window in there while certain districts are certifying, you will have a small window to certify. If you know that will not be resolved prior to certification, then you could just go ahead and send me an email to let me know that, and I will go ahead and remove those students from your report. Just a reminder that students cannot initially be identified as DD at ages 8 or 9. Either age will produce an error. And DD students should be reevaluated by their 10th birthday, okay? And next up, we're going to have a frontline representative to come through and talk to you. And I'm going to be reviewing the chats in the background as they present. So Sophia or Nikita.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, okay, perfect. All righty, good morning all. So I'll be sharing a couple slides here around the managed student enrollment, some updates that we provided. So these first couple of slides will be pretty much taken from the release notes that went out with the 23.2.2 release in July. We included functionality to manage the overlapping enrollment entries. This was primarily added for state reporting issues that were reported, as PowerSchool does not enforce no overlapping enrollments, and so sometimes some things there can overlap. Where you will see these two changes primarily are on the student's profile tab and when merging the student records. Next slide. Okay. How you will see that is you'll just essentially see a new column under the schools and grade levels section on the profile page in the enrollment history section. And now you'll see that manually added column, which will have a value of either yes or no. Obviously, the yes values will be for those records that are manually entered, and then SIS imported records would have the no value. Next slide. How this is managed, so we did not add additional permissions, but if you have the edit permission under the student profile enrollment area, you can add and edit the enrollment for the manually entered kiddos. And just here on the screenshot, right, you'll see that add button there. If you edit the student record and you're on that page, then once you add, it will enter that the kind of red outline of all of those fields, and then you can enter data. And obviously the manually entered value will be yes once you're adding it directly into Enrich. Okay. So for here, I wanted to just kind of call out a few things that we have discovered. So right, it's been a couple of weeks that functionality has been out, and we know that we've gotten a couple of tickets and some issues for that. So I wanted to speak to that a bit. These will be the two common errors that you'll see, right? So either the student cannot have overlapping grade level histories, or you can't have overlapping school enrollment. Well, it just says enrollment histories. I added school just for context. I think that might look a little bit differently in PowerSchool, so I just wanted to make that clear that that's the school enrollment histories that you'll see. And then here's a couple of steps just to kind of keep in mind. Of course, the manual entries can be modified as necessary. The SIS imported entries must be corrected in PowerSchool. Some of you may have received some information, but there are a couple of steps that you can correct that in PowerSchool. I know VC3 has a document, but we can also share that out in mass if needed. But you can run a report to kind of see those school enrollments. So under that reports, system reports, there's a school enrollment audit report that you can run to see the students' different enrollments. And if anything needs to be corrected, you would correct that under that transfer info page to update those entries. Okay. And then here, so I just wanted to share a couple of things around that. Again, like I said, I know we've gotten some tickets, just having some frustrations and just needing to work through a couple of the issues. The first thing is to have patience. We provided it is new functionality, so there is a little bit of a curve. Also, the timing could not have been any better, joke, but just have patience as we work through these. As you guys work through them, we are here, of course, to assist. But just remember to kind of have patience. There's a lot going on. We'll definitely get the information updated for you. Next, only the manually entries can be edited. So although there's the SIS imported records, right, that will show, it's the manual entries that you'll really need to address to kind of get past if you have any errors, right? If you do, if you're merging kiddos or you're trying to pull some kids in or import their records. So it's the manually entered records that you can edit. And of course, in that, please review the start and end dates closely. I know they can show, they can be, especially if a kiddo has transferred, maybe between a couple of different schools. So just make sure that you're looking at those start and end dates closely for both schools and the grade levels. And then lastly here, again, just to note that we're here, definitely contact support for assistance. We are definitely here to help, walk and help through any of those issues.
Okay. Thank you, Sophia. I'm sorry, why don't we call you Sophia? Nikita, thank you for that. That concludes the Enrich or the Frontline updates of our presentation. As always, our monthly meetings are the third Thursday in every month at 10 a.m. Our login information will always be the same. We do not change those at any point during the year. So and please feel free to share that with anyone who needs it. It will be perfectly fine. And just to inform you that we had another name change. So our pre-checks / data quality checks are now systemic verification checks for indicators 7, 11, and 12. And as soon as we get something worked out for the discipline, we will start sharing that information with you too. I do know that there is a incident management training coming up, and as soon as I get that information, I will certainly share it with you guys to help keep you informed on what's happening on that side as we make this transition to collect and report discipline from PowerSchool. Our dates for indicators 7, 11, and 12, that's November 17th, February 16th, and April 12th. And the idea is so that we provide you with corrections so that as we transition or progress through the year, you can make those changes in your system and your report will be as clean as possible on the end for the final submission. And now we will open the floor for any questions. So Albert, if you can unmute so that I think we've caught all the questions in the chat, but in the event that we've missed any, or if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask us, they can do some of this.
Participants should be able to go ahead and unmute themselves and ask any questions if they need to.
Good morning, Carolyn. This is Melissa with Georgetown. I did put in the chat about the Indicator 14 survey. I heard you mention that the vendor received a list in August of all the incomplete surveys. And my question was, should we still attempt to make the contact even though the vendor has a list?
Yes, they are aware that the districts are making contacts. And so if they should reach out to a family that has already completed the list, as you guys complete the surveys, they will get that information as well, just to keep both parties informed. They're not getting the response of those surveys unless they completed, but they will get the information as to whether or not that survey has been completed by someone in a district. So both parties will get the information. You will get anything that they complete for your district, and in the interim during the week, if you've made contact with those families, they will get that information as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Carolyn, this is Sonia in Spartanburg 5.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing well.
What is the last date that the districts can contact for Indicator 14?
September 30th.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Team, have we answered all the questions in the chat? Did we miss anything?
I think, Carolyn, there was a question about getting an updated list of who processes what indicators or tables. So
Okay.
That was requested. I don't think we answered that.
Okay, sure, absolutely. We can send that to everyone when we once we get this meeting. I do apologize with the trainings that we've been having with the new vendor. I just lost track of time, but we will get the PowerPoint out to you guys as well as the recording once it's been converted. So we will definitely share this with you guys, and when we send that information out, we will provide you with an updated contact list as well.
And then there's a question, has the list of report due dates been released? I'm assuming they're speaking about the data calendar. That is on our website, if that's what they're referencing.
It is on the website, and we shared that during July, prior to the July, when we sent out the July information, but we can resend that again.
Elizabeth Render has asked, does anyone have a copy of the procedural safeguards handbook in Portuguese?
Ooh, I don't, but I can ask the program team if they have that.
There's a guest question saying, can we disable the non-applicable code? So I guess that's in, I'm unsure, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Could that person come off and talk about which codes they're referencing? I think it's LS guest. I'm not sure. And Albert has put the link in the chat for the data reporting calendar.
And I think Kathy Wood just requested that we could add her to the weekly updates. She's taking Kelly Wicks's place.
Okay.
So make sure all your information is also updated with the agency overall in, is it Deems? What is it?
Yes,
the
Deems.
directory. Yeah.
And this is Melissa Chiplis from Berkeley. That was not my question about the removing the from the LRE, but I believe that was associated with the preschool codes. If we could remove the ones that are not applicable, that we wouldn't be using regardless.
So the early childhood population gets a little tricky, but it only gets tricky when the students are 5, because we had the 5-year-old school year, the way that the system enriched system is designed, the 5-year-olds was embedded into the early childhood population when the criteria for reporting those changed. So that's really where the mix-up comes in at. So that's why we added the additional verbiage in there to help guide districts through on which type of IEP to start with, so that in the end, it will yield the right outcome. So to answer your question, we can't remove the school age students from the early childhood table. Am I correct with that, Nikita? Or Sophia?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay. And if there are no additional questions, we're going to give you guys a whopping 10 minutes back in your day. I hope that everyone survived the storm safely. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We are here to assist you. Enjoy the rest of your day.